Hey guys, so we need to talk about this. Specifically this. So I got this book about 3 weeks, a month ago when I was in Zurich at a bookstore, and I was like, I've heard about this book, and I read books mostly on my laptop because I do travel, and kind of carrying around a book isn't that convenient or easy. But when it comes to longer books like this one, I know some people said this book is like 800 pages, but my copy is 720 pages. So I don't know if it's just like a difference between here in the States. This is the British version or the European version, because I know the cover is different. But when I get a longer book, I like to get the physical copy of it because it's a lot easier, I think, to read and kind of like keep at it, because you can kind of see the progress you're making, and it's kind of easier to take with you, because when I read on my laptop, I can only like read when I have my laptop. I could just take this in a bag. And when I was reading like the first 150 pages, yeah, I read this mostly when I was moving between places on the train. And then the last kind of 550 pages I read in the past week while I'm here in Basel. And I have to say, I was reading in the first 150 pages, but it doesn't like truly start to turn turn you into an emotional wreck until like the page 180. And I was like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't keep reading this on the train or just wait until I was on an airplane or something to read this, because I would have been sobbing the whole time. When I read this from Lausanne to Basel, I was crying already, and I hadn't even got to the parts that made me very sad. But basically, I have finished this book. I finished it 2 or 3 days ago, and I've just kind of been taking the last couple days to kind of think about it and process. I have to say, I think this is probably one of my favorite books. It's A Little Life. I guess I should have introduced it, by Hanya Yanagihara. And I'm just amazed at her level of storytelling, how her words just flow so smoothly, like a waterfall, and how like every word in here, because usually when I read fantasy books or like young adult books, you could kind of skim pretty quickly, I think, because there's some like throwaway lines, and you don't really need to know all the information. Like, it's pretty easy to follow along. But like this, if you skip one sentence, you are out of the loop. So like I was going through and like reading every line and then rereading it, because I'm like, is that what they meant? And like all of these connections, and just like the time that she probably put into this. Like, I don't know how long. I'm actually gonna look it up right now. How long it took her to write A Little Life, because it's how long did this took her 18 months. She spent 1.5 years writing this. How? I don't understand how. That doesn't seem physically possible with like the amount, because like look how I'm gonna do the beginning so I don't actually accidentally spoil something, but like look how many words are on these pages, and the descriptions, and like the building of characters and setting and kind of the groundwork of the relationships. I've spent a couple days thinking about how I can talk about this book, and there's really no way, I think, to talk about this book besides like you reading it. Just titled the video me raving about A Little Life for 10 minutes straight. But it kind of shocks you and like lures you into a false sense of security with the characters, where you want things to work out for the best for them, but you know it's not going to. It's a little life, which when they started like using the word life, the further and further you get into the book, you're like, no. I'm not going to do spoilers because I don't think that would be very fun, because it kind of takes away from the enjoyment of the book. I have to say, when I was reading it this past week, I don't know, like, if somehow, like, my phone knew I was reading it, but I kept getting like posts on TikTok where it'd be like a little life maybe, and I'll be like, nope, nope, no spoilers. Or like on Tumblr or YouTube, I know that Jack Reeds put his review out a week or two ago, and I was excited for that video, but I'm like, and it said no spoilers, but in his video title, and I was like, oh, I'm still not gonna watch it because I don't want him to influence how I'm going to interact with this book. And I'm kind of glad I did that, because though I watched his video and though there wasn't any spoilers, I still feel like it kind of would have like affected how I would read it. And I probably wouldn't have continued reading it if I watched his video first, because it would have made me too sad thinking about it. But the characters, Jude, Wilhelm, JB, and Malcolm, they're just, you just feel so much for these characters that I usually have a hard time connecting with characters in a book, because usually this is like one novel, and there's not gonna, I don't think there's no sequel, there's like no prelude, you just get what's in this book. And it's not usually, I don't usually have a connection with the characters unless it's usually like a series or a longer, or like a series where you kind of get to know the characters more and you're with them for a longer period of time. And I know this book, it's 720 pages, so you're with the characters for a long bit of time. And even though it's like, I read it in a week, this is like these characters' whole lives in these pages, and you just kind of get to live with them as they live and grow and get to trust. And when their trust is broken, it feels like your trust is broken, because you wanted so much for the character. And when that didn't happen, and when all of their worst fears came true, betrayal either from friends or loved ones, and then you saw them build their trust in people to see it broken, and you're just kind of like, oh wow, that really hurt. So I would rate this 5 out of 5 stars. It's probably going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. I think a lot of what happens is when I buy a physical book, it's usually one of my favorite reads of the year. But I don't know, I really like this book, and I kind of want to read it again, which probably isn't the best thing to do right now. But I read this book because I saw it on Book Talk for like the longest time, and everybody like, oh, it's such a sad book, and it is such a sad book. And I have to say, I'm kind of like loving the Book Talk books that I get recommended, because it's kind of hard for me to connect with modern novels, and because there's just so many to read, there's so many, like you see a list of different novels people are talking about every day, and the fact that I was able to get this one and read it, it kind of made me feel connected to like book culture right now. I think since I graduated, I got my master's last July, so it's been like a year and a couple months since I graduated from college, since I graduated from university, and you kind of feel like disconnect, because you're so used to like reading with like English, my English degree, I was so used to reading a book with a group of people and then talking about it, and then being able to go on to Book Talk and still find that community is very nice. And I've enjoyed how with Book Talk and with like the book YouTube community, there's still that connection, but you don't have to do the school part of it. I kept notes while reading A Little Life, and I don't like writing in books. That's never been something that I've never liked writing in books. That's something I've never done. I've never annotated a book. I just never felt the need. Like when I was in school, I got into the habit of writing like what I was thinking and then the page number next to it, because if you're doing a research paper, that's a really good way for you to like have quotes or your ideas down and then like citing the information that way. And I think that's just a really good helpful hint. Like if you're doing a reading journal, always write the page number. Or if it's like a collection of books, the person's name, a collection of stories, or a collection of stories, or a collection of articles, writing like who the person in that essay is and then the page number. It's just really helpful. But I only wrote 2 notes. I wrote a couple notes. So the one I wrote, gotten to page 250, love Jude, my sweet baby boy, and then I did like a face. So love that from my reading log. And then my second one, I think it was a bit farther into the book, kind of when we see Jude get to develop, because the book, even though it's supposed to be about the 4 friends, it does end up being mostly about Jude. I think that they kind of lied about that when they're like, it's a story following 4 friends as they grow up in New York and all of that. This is a book about Jude St. Francis, no one else. It's about Jude. And I think kind of you realize that towards the end. And I wonder what the book would have been like if she did it from like JB's perspective or Malcolm's perspective, because we kind of hear their side in the beginning chapter. Kind of we get that switch around where we hear from all 4 of them, but then as the book progresses farther out from like here, it's all Jude basically, or Harold or Wilhelm. So I don't know, maybe it'd be cool for her to write a book from JB or Malcolm's perspective of everything that's happening, because they live their own little lives outside of Jude, and I kind of want to know what happened with them by the time we get to the end of Jude's story. So yeah, so that would be nice. But yeah, one of my other comments was just kind of talking about Jude and Wilhelm's connection and their friendship, and kind of how Jude is looking to create situations from his childhood and then being disappointed when other people don't fall into the same patterns that he experienced and he was used to. He wanted people to be upset and then take that anger out on him in the way he was used to, because he knew how to deal with it. He didn't know how to deal with disappointment or just non-violence. He needed the hurt, and it's kind of makes you upset because he wanted to fall back into the abusive pattern, even though he was so afraid of it, because it was something he knew how to deal with. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is like my big read of the month. It's the end of August now. So yeah, I am excited for my next read, and I kind of want to check out what other books Hana Yanagara wrote and read those too. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a nice week. Bye.